Hi, welcome to Evidence for Faith. It's your host, Michael Lane, and
Michaela Vovk.
We are here with you. So glad you're joining us for another Devo by the Sea. And I just love the ocean. I know you do too.
Oh, yes.
We spend a lot of time in the ocean whenever we get a chance. And one of the things that I love about the ocean, one of your sisters can't stand, is the sand. I love to play in the sand. You know, there's different types. There's some places in the ocean where the sand is so coarse, it's like sandpaper. It sounds a little stupid. But there are some places like Rose Island, the Bahamas, it's like powder.
Yes.
Almost a talcum powder. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The problem with that, you know, it gets in your swimsuit.
Oh, yes. It sure does.
That's what my wife can't stand. So these romantic TV movies and cinemas where they show people, two lovers laying there on the beach in the surf and just sitting there enjoying the sunset or sitting there kissing and the surf is just coming in. That's sort of unrealistic in a lot of ways because afterwards you got sand literally everywhere.
Yes.
I mean, everywhere. So grains of sand, they can be beautiful, but yeah, they can also be an irritation.
Yes.
Anyway, Michaela, you wrote this lesson, so we're going to let you go ahead and do this. What do we call this? The grains of sand.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, so we're already talking about whether we like sand or not. I do like sand, though not the sand that we find like here in Wisconsin. I was just at the beach earlier this week, and I was actually complaining because I was sitting in the sand trying to build a sandcastle with my daughters, and I was like, oh, the sand is so uncomfortable. It's so rough. Like you said, it's kind of like sandpaper. That was very rough sandpaper. I prefer ocean sand. Actually, one of my favorite things to do when I'm diving is to completely deflate my BC and just sit on the bottom of the seafloor and just run my fingers through the sand. And especially that sand, it's perfectly grooved by the sea waves, and it's just, it's so nice. That's where I like my sand. But sand on Rose Island, that's pretty good too. Just laying on the beach on that soft, pillowy sand. It's wonderful. Can you tell that it's like 50 degrees and windy and cold outside today? We clearly don't want to be here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'd like to be back at Rose Island and having that. Though sometimes when the wind comes up, the sand even blows in your eyes and stuff. I'm not crazy about that.
Yeah, there can be times when sand is not the best. So, anyways, have you ever looked closely at sand? And I'm talking today more specifically about like ocean sand or sand that you would find on the beach. It's actually really fun sometimes to look at it. Sand can be made of minerals or rocks, but if you're by the ocean, it can also be made of really tiny ground up pieces of coral or seashells. So it can really be fun to examine. But regardless of what it's made of, I think we can easily say that sand is innumerable. That you would never be able to count the grains of sand. Yeah,
and even on some islands down in the Bahamas, there's pink sand, which comes from sea creatures, coquina shells and conch shells that have been ground up and eroded. And I think in the Pacific, even as Hawaii has black sand, volcanic.
Yeah, I think so.
And so it could be different colors. I'll take the pink over the black any day.
Yeah, definitely. Can't imagine what that would look like all over your body.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Of course, you're talking to a person who goes to Israel and covers themselves with mud from the Dead Sea. So.
Yeah, I suppose. Going back to how we were saying that the sand is innumerable, I mean, can you imagine how great that number has to be if you were to count each grain of sand that is in the entire world on all of the beaches? Like, gosh, I couldn't even imagine how big that number would be.
I can't even imagine counting the grains just on my body and when I come back from the beach. But it does say, God tells us in the book of Hosea in the first chapter that the grains of sand are innumerable.
Yes, it does. And it also reminds me of a verse found in Psalm 139, verses 17 to 18. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. How vast are God's thoughts? This verse tells us that his thoughts can be compared to the grains of sand. We can't count the grains of sand, just like we cannot count the thoughts of God, and we can't count the greatness of how his thoughts are. And we often find ourselves thinking that we know better than God, and maybe that's not what we are intending. But when things don't go our way and according to the schedule and the plan that we think that they should go, we get frustrated. It's as though we're putting God into a box. I know from what I'm going through in my life with my family right now is I feel like things should be happening in a certain way. We're waiting on something to happen, and it just keeps getting delayed further and further. And I'm getting so frustrated, and I'm like, things are not going according to my schedule. Things are not happening. I know that if this were to just happen, that everything would be better, and we need to just move on and stick with my schedule. My schedule is so much better than everyone else's. But no, it's not my schedule. It's God's schedule. And I need to remember that it is going according to God's schedule, that he has not lost control of it, that he is in control, and his plans are perfect. His thoughts are perfect, and his plans are perfect, and they are far greater than I can imagine. It says in Isaiah 55, 8 through 9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." God considers things that we could never imagine. He knows the future. We don't know the future. And so because of that, we should definitely not be put in charge. God knows everything. I mean, he is the almighty sovereign God. He knows everything. He rules over everything. He is everywhere. His plans are best, and we can trust that his plans are best. Psalm 45 says, "O Lord my God, you have performed many wonders for us. Your plans for us are too numerous to list. You have no equal. If I tried to recite all your wonderful deeds, I would never come to the end of them." It also says in Psalm 18:30, "This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield to all those who take refuge in him." When I look back at my life, I am sure thankful that I am not the one in charge, because I don't know how I would have gotten out of certain messes. I am so glad that it is God in control of my life and ruling everything. And even in the moments where I felt like my world was falling apart, I now realize that God was actually putting it all together. Actually, just recently, a few months ago, actually almost 6 months ago, I broke my leg, and I thought it was the end of everything. I didn't know what was going to happen. My career changed because I was a horse trainer before, and you can't really train horses with a broken leg. That just doesn't work.
That would be difficult. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, and I was laid up in my bed. I was alone all day, and I was just I don't know what's going to happen. I felt so lost, and I felt like this injury was such a bad thing to happen.
So this wasn't part of your plan of your life?
It was not part of my plan, but it was part of God's plan. And looking back now, I mean, I hated going through it. It was not fun dealing with a broken leg with all the pain. And like I said, being alone in my bed all the time, all day long. It was so hard. But looking back at it now, I wouldn't change it. I am so glad that in some ways, I'm so glad that it did happen, because God has brought about so many wonderful blessings from my broken leg, from that injury. One of those blessings is I am here. I am at Evidence for Faith.
Yeah.
That injury led me to, like I said, I had to move on from my job of horse training full time to now I get to work here at Evidence for Faith, and I get to serve him through this ministry. And it's truly a great thing. And it's such a great example for me to just remind myself that God is in control. He foresaw that injury happening. He ordained it. He let it take place. And honestly, I'm so glad that it did. It was hard, but it brought me closer to him, and I believe it put me on the path of life that he wants me to live. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Oh. And in Romans 11:33, it says, "Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. His wisdom is unlike any others. His thoughts are innumerable, just like the grains of sand on the beach."
Isn't it interesting that there's really two plans for everybody? It's their plan, and then it's God's plan.
Yes.
And we have our life all planned out, and yet we're sort of blinded by, if you will, a fog that you can't even see the highway more than 100 feet ahead of you, and you're trying to go cross country, and you don't know where you're going, and you're just taking one path after the other, whereas God can see the whole highways all over the country, and he determines the best way for us to go. And when we turn off on these, he can, in his way, put us back on track. We might even have to make a U-turn, like, God, why are we going backwards on this, right?
Yes.
But, there's one thing that I remember reading years ago in a Chuck Swindoll book. I don't remember which one it was, but he said, and I love this. I had this written on my wall when I taught school, or on my computer when I taught school for many years. And it was this little phrase here that, let's see if I get this right. Nothing will happen to me today that first doesn't pass through the fingers of God.
That's good.
I love that. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this time we've had here and going through another Devo of the Sea and talking about sand. And if you've enjoyed this, I just wonder if you would consider praying for Evidence for Faith or even making a donation to us on our website. Please comment back to us, too. We like to hear from you. But until we meet again, take care and may God bless.